Hello, my name is Sky with Smart Poker Study. In this video, I'm going to help you have a good reason to call any post-flop bet. I'm going to start off by talking about the kind of player that you do not want to be, some of those unthinking callers out there. Then I'm going to give you 3 good reasons to call post-flop. And then we're going to dive into an example hand where I look at it from my perspective as the bettor, and then we're going to look at it from my opponent's perspective as the caller. Then I'm going to give you a little task to get you practicing making better calls. Let's get to it. All right, so let's talk about your reasons to click that call button. And of course, I say the call button, so I'm referring to online play. But if you're a live player, it doesn't matter. These good calling strategies work across the board. Live, online, cash games, MTTs, sit and goes, it doesn't matter. Good calling strategies work against any player and in any game. So first off, let's talk about players, right? The weakest players, those fish, the calling stations, the players that just hate folding, they call by default. They just don't know a better play to make. Maybe they just don't want to fold because they've seen too many times hands go runner to catch a straight or something like that. Maybe they just have any pair and they hate getting bluffed. Or maybe they're just hoping you're bluffing, so they call with an ace high or a 4th pocket pair kind of a hand. Or maybe they just have any draw and they can't fold a draw, right? They've already committed money pre-flop. We can't just give up on that. So these players call by default, but you do not want to do this. You don't want to have your approach to poker be just calling in order to hit something by the river. You need to have good reasons to call. Reason number 1 is that you hold a value hand. And what do I mean by that? Well, that means your hand strength is greater than their betting range. They could be betting second pair, top pair weak kicker, and you just have a stronger pair at the time, right? Or maybe you're doing bluff catching. You've seen them in a similar situation, bluff with their draws, bluff with their ace high and king high hands. So you have a third pair. You know that they bluff often here. You go ahead and make the call in hopes that your pair ends up being stronger than their hand. And lastly, maybe you have an incredibly strong hand, right? Like you flopped quads and you don't want to let them know that they are going to lose the hand. So you don't want to raise them just yet. So calling is just fine. Now, of course, you want to always get value when the value's good. So if they're going to call a raise when you have quads, yeah, make the raise right now before the board gets any scarier for them. But if you think a raise will get them to fold, calling when you're incredibly strong is just fine. The second reason to call is that you see an opportunity to bluff them later on in the pot. Now, this often happens, or not often. This one example of this is when you're up against a turn-honest player and you are in position. Turn-honest means that they only bet on the turn when they have some kind of a good hand. So you'll often see this when the player c-bets on the flop like 70% and they c-bet on the turn like 40%. They only double barrel when they have the goods. So you call them on the flop, and as soon as they check on the turn, you come out with a bet and steal that pot with a bluff. The third reason is that you have a good draw and the price is right to call. That means that the chance to hit your draw is greater than the break-even point. Now, I'm not going to get super deep into the break-even point. I can save that for a future video. But just as a quick example of what I'm talking about, let's say the pot is $2. You're facing a $1 bet. You have to call 1 to win a $4 total pot. Now that $4 is the $2 pot, $1 bet, $1 call. The break-even point is $1 divided by $4, which is 25%. So you need 12 or more outs for a mathematically sound call. And the way we find this out or figure this out is we just use the 2x rule. So however many outs you have, multiply it by 2. That's your chance to hit your draw on the next street. Alrighty, so those are the 3 reasons right there. We're going to hit them a little bit deeper when we go through our example hand right now. Whoa, Nelly, this is a good, fun, super happy hand. I'm spoiling it for you right now. So let's take a look at the action here. Oh, first off, on the right are those 3 reasons I just gave you to make a call post-flop. Now, we are the pre-flop bettor, so we're going to be up against this villain 1, 2, 3. You could see 57/23, pretty loose aggressive player, but that huge gap between VPIP and PFR means that they just call a whole heck of a lot in general right now. It is only 14 hands, but their pre-flop play indicates what kind of post-flop player they are as well. Not always, but quite often. Let's check out the action here. A limp in, Oh, we raise it to 4, liking it, going for value here against a player that we determine probably a pretty darn loose aggressive one. They just call, so we're out of position. Flop comes 6, deuce, 3. We're not really scared of anything. Sure, he could have limp called with deuces, 3s, and 6s. Even pocket 4s and 5s have a pair plus a draw right now. But there's nothing to be scared about. Like, we have a commanding lead over this hand with our pocket jacks. We're out of position, so we lead out with a 2/3 pot value bet. And they call. Great, loving it. We don't really want to see an ace, a king, or a queen on the turn, but every other card is pretty darn good for us right now. The 8 hits, nothing scary, doesn't complete any draws, no straights got there, nothing. Pocket 8's got ahead of us, but we're not really scared of that. 18 big blinds. You can see I upped my bet sizing to 6/7 of the pot from 2/3 of the pot. Basically going for max value, right? Look at this. He has 50 big blinds in his stack, 21 in the pot, and I'm just trying to build that pot, baby, to get him all in on the river. And he decides to call. River 10 comes. Good. No ace, no king, no queen, nothing. We're not scared of anything. It wasn't a 4, wasn't a 5, wasn't even a 7 to complete some kind of a draw. 7-9 has a draw, or 7-9 just now hit a straight, but we're not really worried about that. This player has shown 3 streets of passivity, and twice on the pre-flop by limping and then calling. This player loves calling. We just decide to shove it in, try to make it look bluffy. Maybe he'll think we have a king high or an ace high hand here and can call with just a random 6, right? And he ends up calling. Great. We got that full 122 big blind pot. Let's see what he had. Ace 5 suited. Great. We took it down. He had ace high. And then you look at this hand, you think to yourself, what is he doing? He doesn't hold a value hand. He's not capable of bluffing. I mean, this is a river call for the rest of his stack. There's no bluff later on. And he didn't really have a good draw the entire time. Sure, it was a gut shot, but that's only 4 outs, right? I guess if he could count his 3 aces, that's 7 outs total. It's only 14% chance to hit on the turn and then on the river. Not good plays. So let's go ahead and replay this hand from his perspective here. He doesn't know what we have, but he has the ace 5. So first he limps, we raise, and then he calls. I'm not a fan of limping in. First off, you've got to be aggressive when it's your chance to open raise, especially with an ace right here. I mean, if he raises it to 4 and we both fold, great. He just won 1.5 big blinds. He had some fold equity with this raise, right? I don't like the limp and the call. Well, I don't like the limp. Calling is just fine because now he has position on us with a suited ace. Now, flopping that gut shot right here. So you have a good draw and the price is right. So my opponent, hero, decides to bet. I'm villain 1, 2, 3. Now, I don't hold a value hand. Do I have an opportunity to bluff later? Maybe. If this wasn't me, let's say this was this person here, right? C bets 50% on the flop and only follows it up on the turn with 33%. Kind of a turn honest player right here. Maybe there's an opportunity to bluff against this guy. But right now, he doesn't know anything about me. It's my first hand of the table. I only have 14 hands on him. He can't see an opportunity to bluff later. Not a good opportunity, at least. Now, you have a good draw and the price is right. Well, he needs 29% equity to call. He has 7 outs. It only hits 14% of the time. No, not such a good price. So he did not call with a good reason here. He called because he had a draw and didn't want to fold. Calls. Turn comes 8. Doesn't help him. It's not the 8 of hearts. Maybe he's thinking that, ooh, 5 red cards equals a flush. Who knows what he's thinking here? We make an even bigger bet. Still has the gut shot. Is not getting a good price to call. As you can see, he needs 32% equity to call. He's only got, once again, 14%. Loving my bet. Loving his call as well, right? River comes 57 big blinds. Only an ace high hand. All you could do is beat a king high or a queen high bluff right here. We bet. And I love this when players just say, screw it, I call, without a good reason at all. No reason here is applicable, right? And they call, and we take the whole pot down. And he's probably a bit upset when we hold the pocket jacks right here. All right, so there's the example. You do not want to be this type of player. You want to be thinking about the reasons you're calling and have a good reason. And to help you have a good reason, I've got a little take action step for you right now. Alrighty, so I want you to play with purpose and use a post-flop calling tick sheet. So in your next 5 play sessions, use a tick sheet with 3 columns to help you make more reasoned post-flop calls. And here are the 3 columns. You're going to put value hand, a bluff later opportunity, and a good price to call. And then every time before you click call, actually, let me go to the next one. Before you click call, figure out why you're calling and not folding or raising instead, and make a tick mark under the appropriate column. And then that's when you make the call, after you've decided decided upon the reason for your call, and you make that tick mark. Here's the goal with doing this exercise. No more unthinking calls. A good reason equals positive EV. Now, you might make a mistake, right? You might think there's a really good opportunity to bluff later, and you make a little tick mark right here, you call, and then he double barrels on the turn, and then you have to fold. Well, as long as you thought about it ahead of time, you saw a good opportunity to bluff. He just ended up having a hand worthy of double barreling in this instance, right? So sometimes just because a bluff opportunity doesn't work, or having a good price and then not hitting your draw just because it doesn't work, doesn't mean that call was a bad one to make. Alrighty, now it's time for you to take action and make better post-flop calls, and I'll see you on the felt.